Hi, my name is Line, and I'm going to talk about how you can build a very strong backbone for your social media and your online services, and how that actually can improve the availability of the services you have online. My agenda in this talk is actually 4 points. First of all, what do I mean when I say a backbone of social media? What kind of technical components are part of this? When we talk about online availability, what do we actually mean? And how does it matter in terms of your online services and what you offer your clients? The fourth point is turning back and going back to the backbone of your social media, presenting sort of a new breed of databases. How can they help you getting better online availability on your services? And last but not least, I want to round up mentioning 3 steps on how you can improve your availability from a technical standpoint. When we talk about availability of your services, they're basically, when you cut away all the design and the graphics and the impression that leaves with your client, there are basically 2 things existing for an online experience. Does it work or doesn't it work? And I think we should start a little bit by reflecting on our own online services or social media services we offer our clients. And I have actually put in 2 of the responses I got recently on engagement I had online, and that was a blog post that I posted. It was successfully published, or it was a service where I went to a web shop and the service was unavailable. So on these 2 extreme ends of the spectrum, where do you see your online services today? Do you have high availability, or are you actually letting your clients down? What does that have to do with your social media architecture? Well, quite a lot actually, because what you see in terms of your services, what you see on your mobile phone, your tablet, or your web services when you go to your browser, is actually services that are linked to something underlying. And it's linked to a database that supports these services with data, both from your clients, but also from you pushing that to the client. So you can actually say social media is like an iceberg. What the user sees is actually what you see in your browser or on your mobile phone. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Underneath, you have all the things that can make your whole system go shipwreck, and that is your database. So the front end of your social media architecture, it's illustrated here with a tablet. That's everything that the client sees. It's your blog, it's what you buy online, it's your corporate website, it's live streaming a video, it's all the social media channels that we know, it's monitoring tools, and so on. So this is what you see. This is the tip of the iceberg. What is underneath is something completely different, and everybody has that. Twitter, Facebook, Google, so on, has this on there as part of their architecture, and that's the database. You need a database at the bottom of your corporate website, your blog, your video blog, your live streaming, your e-shop, and everything else that goes on online. You need a database for that. And it has huge importance for the performance of your website, and thus the performance the user experiences. So that's all fine when we talk about databases. But what does availability really mean, and how important is it? There was quite a recent study showing that you have 1 second online from success to failure. So 1 second delay on your websites actually means you have 11% fewer showings of your web page. You have 7% lost conversation. That means a client that does not get in contact with you because they lose patience. And then you might say, okay, that's fine, but what about the user himself or herself? They just need to have better connectivity. That's actually not true, because research also shows that the better connectivity you have as a user, the more impatient you are. So actually not the users with the worst connectivity you lose first, it's actually the ones with the better connectivity. And it's been so, the development has been so strong, it actually means that we never get timed out on a service online. We simply lose patience. If you see something like video streaming, research shows that users start leaving after 2 seconds. So after 2 seconds, when the video is not running yet, you're still waiting, people start leaving. 6% of the users actually leave after each additional second on top of that. And this means 16 seconds later, you have no users left that is actually waiting to see your video. and it's getting worse. Two of the things that are driving this development is all the social media online services that we have. Something like Twitter, you can only write 140 characters. That really minimizes our attention span. A new service like Wine, which is boasting also video content. You have a limit there, 6 seconds content you can show on this service. Combined with everything we do mobile, this means that our attention span is minimized and we accept no delays in terms of availability. So how can you check that? How can you check that on your online services, your social media platforms? Well, you can check your Google Analytics. You can look at your click report and say, okay, when do my visitor on my website leave? What kind of services are they accessing when they decide to leave? Is there a difference between the visitors? Is there a difference between the time of day when people have more or less patience? What kind of content do they go for? You can start by checking that in your Google Analytics or other analytics tools to get an impression of that. When you know a little bit more about what makes your visitors leave, makes your users leave, you have to understand a little bit more about the role of the database. Because the role of the database is to make content available for the user. And there are different ways of doing that. When the user interacts with their primary interface, mobile app, web service, they put information to you. You need to respond on, and the quicker you respond, the longer you have your client on, and the longer you have your client willing to engage with you. You also need to push quickly information to the client. Depending on what they do online, depending on how the users respond, you need to push information, the right information to the client. And then you have another thing which the database is very important for. That's the analytics part. So as you saw before, if you use Google Analytics, if you use another analytics tool that is bound and connected with your database, you can actually see how is the behavior of my users actually evolving. All these things they do on my services online, how can I interpret that? How can I use that for useful information to build my services online? And you have 1 second and a little bit more, and then they start leaving. So when we talk about availability in databases, what's so special about these new breed of databases? They're called NoSQL, but that's not the special thing. The special thing about them is they are actually born in a social media setting. So companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook were the first companies that actually used NoSQL databases commercially. The databases has existed since the 60s, but these companies started using them. They have massive data. They have a lot of data online that needs to be put and made available to their users quickly. So the benefits are actually, with these databases, faster retrieval of data and faster transactions for the user. It's a whole family of databases, actually. So it's not just one product or 5 products. It's a lot of different family members, you can say, in this NoSQL database area. And they work with these unstructured data that you get online. You get posts, you get videos, you get pictures, you get blog posts, you get a lot of different kinds of data. They are faster because they have a simpler data model, and then they can actually run on just ordinary hardware, nothing special, not a big bad server. They can run on commodity hardware, which keeps the cost down. And then you can try it for free. It's open source. I want to look at 4 different members of this family so you can get an insight into what you can choose from when you build a social media architecture. One of them are called InMemory Databases. And InMemory Databases are used by Facebook, for example. So they are all about relations, how you build relations and you push data between these different relations. So they are good for everything that is related to each other, connected data, and everything that needs to be quick and goes on online. Another breed of databases within this NoSQL family is the distributed databases. It's when you suddenly need massive data, massive volumes. If you have users that are growing, your social media network is growing rapidly, or you have a lot of heavy data like videos or video streaming, you can scale quickly up and down with these databases, and they're distributed. And they're used by services like Yammer and also Netflix. uses these databases distributed for video streaming. The third branch of the family is called the big data database. You can call them big data databases. They're very good for analytics. So all this information you gather about the users and how they perform online, what they do and what they don't do, you can use these databases to store the data, but also use it for analytical purposes. So it's good for massive data volumes. If you save every blog post, if you save every little action that the user does on your website, on your eShop, you can use these databases for analytical purposes. And last but not least, we have something that I have called the easy databases. And it actually means they're easy to scale, and they are easy to use for storage. And they're actually good and have been used often for enterprise social networks. So when your network is not completely open, but it has some kind of restrictions on the users. So if you have a corporate website or a corporate network where you share information in your corporation, this kind of database can be a good answer for you. So now we heard about why is availability important. I mean, you have all these users, you lose them in a second online, so you need to make sure that your services are available online. Your social media reach is always on. But how do you ensure this with these new databases? It's very important to analyze your usage patterns. What do the users go to your social media network or on your website to do? What kind of services, what kind of engagement do they have? What kind of content do you have on your website or your social media network? Is it video? Is it pictures? Is it more text? Do they download something? Have a look at that. Compare your content with your use patterns. Secondly, look at the transactions that the user do actually online. What kind of data do they push to you? So not only what do they access on your website, but what do they give you data with the interaction they have with you? And then basically comparing these two things, you can try to match that with the right database for you. And the right database is the one that gives you maximum availability for the right job. So what you need to get done needs to be combined with the right database. And last but not least, it's important to say, mentioned before, you don't get a second chance. The customer checks in once on your services, and if you get the sign, service unavailable, you might not check in later. Patience is a key, and the span of patience, it's getting narrower and narrower. We only get one shot online. Thank you.